And it's funny that you mentioned that about Wrong Turn 2. I had a lot more creative leeway in Wrong Turn 2 because it seemed like if you put everybody into a room together, it seemed like I was the only one that knew enough about horror movies to know what worked and what didn't. So like, but it wasn't like I was pushing myself into that situation. They just saw like, wow, he made a Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter reference. And I remember that movie. And yeah, I do remember that one part with the machete. And yeah, that's really interesting. Like, yeah, what else do you have to say about that matter, Joe? I didn't go like, it's my way or the highway.
Right.
It was more that I organically proved that like, I'm a bit of I was a bit of an expert on the genre at the time, especially splatter films. And I knew what I thought worked right. Like, perfect example of that is the opening scene when Kimberly gets split in half. When I referenced and even showed a clip from Dead Alive. Now, Dead Alive, if you remember, in the beginning of the film with the Sumerian monkey rat, when the archaeologist he gets bit and the tribal members are like cutting off arms and legs, and he's going Zingaya, and then it cuts to the one last cut, and then it cuts to black and it cuts to the title card. And I'll never forget reading the script, the original script for Wrong Turn 2, and essentially that's what happens to Kimberly's character. Also, Kimberly's character was not supposed to be Kimberly Caldwell, so I thought, like, at the time, why not go meta and cast a person as herself to really throw the stakes off? So the combination of having a real person getting killed and then saying to the producers and the executives, like, okay, I think everybody, and maybe half the people in the room knew what Dead Alive was. They knew Peter Jackson, but they weren't sure what Dead Alive was. But enough knew, like, oh, it's supposed to be this crazy, outrageous, wildly disgusting movie, but done tongue in cheek. I was like, all right, now imagine watching that moment in Dead Alive and going, oh man, because you wanted to see that moment. If anything, Peter Jackson set you up for seeing that moment, and then he cuts to the title card, which is fine because then you get the next 80 minutes of pure madness, and you're going, okay,
he gives you the goods
that one
later
slide.
on.
Yeah, he gets you later on.
Party's over.
But here I was like, if I'm going to get the audience now, we have to take that part further. So being able to, politely and maturely explain, I think we need to show that. And then have storyboards like that showed it explicitly, and everything on the storyboards is in that scene. But also showing them, like, look, here's how you do it right. Here's how I think we should do it better. And by communicating that with people in a studio, mind you, like, even though it was direct to video, it was still Fox, and they were very conservative about it. It helped that at the time, unrated DVDs were huge. So they were just like, look, if you can make your day, shoot it all, we'll make it into a special feature later on. Great, but it was a matter of making everyone feel inclusive to be able to get those choices made. Like with Point Blank, the fact that they're in the ugliest car possible in that, like in a car chase scene, which was an orange PT Cruiser with the wood paneling. Like, the whole point of that movie was to somewhat emasculate those two characters. And I thought, if we're gonna do a car chase scene, let's do it in a car that no one would expect, because everybody expects, cool, fast 68 Hemi Cuda, like they're just gonna find one, jump, slide over the hood, and everyone's badass again. And my point was, let's subvert that. Let's, like, we have our hero is in purple. He's a nurse to start with. And our other quote unquote hero is injured half the movie. So already we're kind of setting things up to, like, based on the script, we're setting things up to be subversive and try something a little different. So I was like, well, then why not have, references to, Metal Gear Solid, and they're talking about video games, or what if we had them in a PT Cruiser, just to try to shake things up a little bit. That's for me, that's always been my thing. Like, I feel like I've seen enough movies to know what's fun when you're seeing something a little different. Not trying to, reinvent the wheel, just something where you go, I appreciate that you went, like you zigged instead of zagged.
Right.
You're still getting to the same point. You're still getting to the same finish line. But if you could take the road less traveled in a way, like if you can be like in Death Proof where they go up the hill instead of the straight line, they'll be able to sucker punch you by T-boning you on the side when you least expect it. You're still going to get to the same spot, but I would much rather kind of take a PT Cruiser route than your typical like, oh man, look at that cool car that they're in. You're going to forget about that car in 30 seconds. But if you're sitting there going, how the fuck is a PT Cruiser going 70 miles an hour? They might not make it out of this, because I've been in a PT Cruiser. My grandmother owns a PT Cruiser, and I know those things do not last very long, in the trenches. So that's how, to me, that's how I feel like I can make a mark by doing by making choices and kind of presenting ideas that you normally wouldn't expect, without upending the apple cart, without like trying to completely change things, because again, we still have to get to the finish line. It's just, let's take a slightly different route.